Here we are.
Good afternoon, our friends, our family, those that are joining us. We are glad you're with us. It looks like there's one person on here right now, unless this is just my share. It might be an only show. You think when you share it and you look at it, you're only looking at, no, there's two people. Whoever you are with us, we want to know.
It was my phone. But you heard the audio.
Yep. Gotcha. We're glad you're with us. Let me just say that.
It's going. It's just got a lag.
I see it.
I'm on the wrong network.
Oh.
I see it. We are live right now, and we are glad. See?
Hello.
See, there we are.
Here
You
we
proved it.
are.
I proved it. In the device of 2 or 3 witnesses, the thing is established. Something like that. We are excited to be with you guys again today in the book of Colossians. One of my favorite books. Paul's theology is packed into this little book. I kind of call it the mini Ephesians. It's a mini Ephesians. To me, I don't know if any other commentator says that, but for me, it's like this a little compact, like here it is. But we're not going to be doing it in 3 weeks. So, I mean, we're going verse by verse.
That's right.
Which I was just talking to Ryan. He won't be probably with us because he's getting ready for a night in Bethlehem. But I was just talking about how, and we talked about this, I think, Tuesday at our staff meeting, that it's really good to go through a verse-by-verse study because it puts you in a position where you might read over something and go, I don't get that, but I'm going to keep going. Mm-hmm. Where when you do a verse-by-verse study, it actually puts you in a position to wrestle with God through the text and say, Lord, what are you speaking? What are you saying in this? Because I mean, what we understand of the new covenant is because of what God downloaded into Paul primarily. So I think it's super exciting. It is super exciting to read Paul because then it gives us a lens for reading the rest of Scripture. So anyway, that's my little nugget today. But I'm looking forward to, even as TJ is yawning, I'm looking forward to our time together. You must be tired.
The boys aren't
You have
sleeping
twins.
very well.
You have twins.
You do have twins.
Yeah.
Oh.
The boys are waking up like back to back, so it's not the same time right now.
Oh no.
So you give one a bottle, he dozes off, and then the other one wakes up.
And you gotta give that one a
and
bottle.
you gotta repeat the process.
And so then you lose sleep.
I was up from roughly 1 till like 4.
Oh, TJ.
But it was like, I say that, I did like doze off in their room.
Yeah.
But it's like,
You didn't go back to sleep though.
Yeah, no,
So anyway, sorry, no
Man.
pity party for TJ.
No, there's grace, man.
Yeah.
There's grace for a dad with twins.
Yeah.
Actually, the good news is there's grace for everybody. So,
Show enough.
So we're going to get into it today. We invite you. This is the reason we do this online. Like we could just do this with us sitting in a room together, but we do it online so that we can hear from you as well, because you have something to bring to this conversation. I think we learn more as we do it together. We grow more. It's not just information. We want revelation. And we're going to grow more as we read through this together. So I typically, and I'm tempted to read from like NASB or New King James Version. I almost always do, right? Because those are the more literal translations. Holman Christian Standard.
He's going TPT today.
I'm going the Message.
Oh.
TBT's good though.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going the Message.
You've intrigued me more now.
Yeah. I'm going NIV, huh? I'm going to do the Message because of, I think that Eugene Peterson kind of captures maybe what I'll go back to a little bit later. So in his paraphrase, he says, this is what, Paul writing, I want you to know how glad I am that it's me sitting here in this jail and not you. There's a lot of suffering to be entered into in this world, the kind of suffering Christ takes on. I welcome the chance to take my share in the church's part of that suffering. When I became a servant in this church, I experienced this suffering as a sheer gift. God's way of helping me serve you, laying out the whole truth. This mystery has been kept in the dark for a long time, but now it's out in the open. God wanted everyone, not just Jews, to know this rich and glorious secret inside and out, regardless of their background, regardless of their religious standing. The mystery in a nutshell is just this: Christ is in you.
Yeah.
So therefore you can look forward to sharing in God's glory. It's that simple. That is the substance of our message. It's good stuff. So get to hear from each of you gentlemen today first. And today I think we'll go TJ. Because TJ he had a good wrestling match. So
Yeah, he did.
You think so?
I'm sure we all did, actually. This first verse is like, what?
Yeah. So to give you guys context, if you aren't just sitting in front of the message reading it, or if you are, I will read it from the ESV, and I'll jump to somewhere else as well. The Passion Translation. But I'll just read the first verse because that's the verse that I kind of want to look at. This is Paul writing again. This is in the ESV. Now I rejoice in my sufferings for your sake, and in my flesh I am filling up what is lacking in Christ's afflictions for the sake of his body, that is the church. When I first read this, and it does take some interpretation and like digging into to really understand it correctly, I think.
Yeah.
Because when you first read this, it sounds like Christ's afflictions weren't enough.
Yeah.
Therefore, me, Paul,
Yeah.
I'm taking on the afflictions that Christ didn't take on.
That's what it sounds
On
like.
your behalf.
On your behalf.
Yep.
And so that's what it sounds like when you first read this. And I'm just like, what is he saying here?
Yep.
Because we know Paul, right? We know, I say that. But like, as you read through the epistles, as you read through Acts, you get to know his heart. And this does not seemingly match.
Right.
And I'm just like, wait, hold on. What are you doing here, Paul? What are you saying? So when I feel that way about something that is written in the Bible, and this is just a little interp lesson for you, I go everywhere else. I start looking at, I just lost the word.
Commentary?
Yes, looking at commentaries, looking at the history, looking at who he's talking to, all of those things. And you have to take that into consideration. I also look at other translations, and I have mentioned this before, but something really cool about the YouVersion app is you can highlight a verse and you can compare it to other translations. So I do that often. And it ended up taking me to the Passion Translation version.
It's a good one, too.
Which I personally think just helped so much in understanding this, because what is really cool, one thing that is really cool about the Passion Translation is it has these footnotes that are right in the text that you can just click on and say, okay, what is this meaning? And it gives kind of a reason why something is said. So I'll read it to you, and then I'll read the footnote.
Cool.
I can even celebrate the sorrows I have experienced on your behalf. For as I join with you in your difficulties. Okay, so now Paul is no longer just taking all of it, right? He's joining with us. It helps you to discover what lacks in your understanding of the sufferings of Jesus Christ experienced for his body, the church. Okay, so now this makes sense to me. And I was like, wait, so why do none of the other translations have in your understanding? Those are the specific words. So, but there's a footnote right there. And it says, the text contains an ellipsis, which is ... that is completed by this translation. So in the actual original writings, there's an ellipsis there. And what the Passion Translation says it does is it fills the ellipsis.
Huh.
So it takes,
Cool.
so that's what it does here. And it says, and that's what they do with the actual words in your understanding, what lacks in your understanding of the sufferings of Jesus. So it almost, it takes me to a place where, like, there are certain things about Jesus, God, Holy Spirit, all of it, right, that we simply cannot understand. We can't fathom. We can't even, like, well, we can't fathom, right? We can't even get there. And so what Paul is saying there is like we know that Jesus died on the cross. We know that he was beaten and he died and was buried and all of that. We know that on a very physical, carnal level, right? But we don't fully comprehend it.
No.
And that's what Paul's saying. And he is taking part in that for an example for us.
Yeah.
That's how I've learned to understand this.
That's really good, TJ.
Which is really cool. And honestly, that's really where it, like, I love Paul because Paul, from our perspective in the Bible, to be clear, not all people, but he's kind of the first one to live out this thing.
Yeah.
And we get to, like, watch it.
Yeah.
And we get to see, like, him process and go through this. And when we apply that to us, because as Christians, as followers of Jesus, we are now the Pauls to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Like, they watch us and they see what we're going through.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, why? So specifically with suffering, why does that person handle suffering different than I'm handling it? So what we would ask is why was Paul singing and praising in jail, in prison?
Yeah.
Like, why is he able to do that?
Right.
And it's his joy of the Lord. It's how much he has fallen in love with the Lord.
Yeah.
And he says, like he says in this verse, I would much rather it be me than you.
Yep.
And that, like, so now we first ask that question. Now we get to exemplify that. We get to. I personally have gone through that with my brother, losing my brother when he passed away when I was 10 and he was 6. And that's a whole story I don't need to get into, but that was a very, very, very hard time.
Oh my gosh.
But I was like, I had this foundation of Jesus that I was able to rely on, and looking back on it, I handled it way better than any, not than any, to be clear. I've seen other people handle it well, but like, I was, through God's provision and through God's just kind of hedge of protection around me, I was able to handle that in a way that a lot of people wouldn't be able to handle it.
Yeah.
And I was able to move on and move forward. Now, that's not to say I didn't have healing to do, and I didn't have mourning to do, and all of that, and grief. I had actual grief work to do that everybody that loses somebody has to do.
Yeah.
It was just this matter of I had this foundation that I was able to work from, even as a 10-year-old, that I was able to handle in a lot, quote unquote, healthier of a way, to where people have asked me that question: how were you able to do what you did, having lost? And that wasn't even the majority of the that was the majority of it, but that wasn't the whole piece. My parents got a divorce the same year as well.
Whoa.
How were you able to go through that and become a decent child, middle school to high school kid? Like, how were you able to do that and not go down a very dark path? And looking back, of course, I was 10 years old, right? I can't really give them like this is how I did it.
Uh-huh.
But I can like say I can look at my life and I can say I had a really solid foundation that really outweighed any other influence within my life.
Mhm.
So I was able to work from that
Yeah.
when a lot of people don't have that to work from. And
Mhm.
it's not necessarily, it's not their fault that they don't have that to work from, to be clear. So that's what we get to be and that's how this connects for me, right? Is there is a lack of understanding of how Christ could go through that, but then how Paul could go through that, but then how we could go through that people can look at and say,
Yeah.
okay, why is that? And what do I need to do to be able to go through these things the way they went through it?
Yeah.
Come on.
And I think that is just extremely valuable and really what the heart of this verse is. It's not I suffered, you didn't. Shame on you.
Right.
It's I'm so glad I suffered in this way and I was able to look to Jesus, and now you can look to me
Yeah.
on how to go through this. And that's relationship, right? That's love. And that's he has relationship with these people.
Oh yeah.
So that's what he's able to say
Mhm.
is I'm so glad that you don't have to go through this. But if you do,
Yeah.
then you now have an example of how to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
So
And he seemed,
Really good.
he seemed to tie that back to what he was talking to Ephesus too. The same thing. Like I haven't stopped, for lack of a better term, putting in the work. So you could understand. Like I
Right.
pray for you unceasingly.
yeah,
So you can understand
Oh
this.
yeah. Mhm.
Yeah,
Right.
so it's kind of a theme, like, all right, and I feel like because he understood the submission to the relationship, being a servant to the commission,
right.
or
yeah.
a servant to the bride, because
There you go.
I think it was last week when we were in here
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. Yes.
Oh yeah. Because last week was Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
wasn't it?
Thanksgiving. Thankful for that too.
Uh-huh.
But it was phrase popped into my mind. It was submission to power is control, but submission to love is relationship. And he understood that, especially as he calling himself a servant. In those days, there were servants that were very low class. So for
Yeah.
him to even express that in that society is already something. Like,
Yeah.
I am a servant. And I'm like, no, you're not. You're a priest, aren't you? Or aren't you, whatever the title they gave him back then. Or, he was calling himself lowly, even in just that. But talking about a mystery, you kind of get I at least get the old monastery kind of picture. They're submitted wholly to this, holy with a W. They're all in to this mystery. And they're always just like stoic towards this mystery, and always letting this mystery thing just kind of be in the monastery when he's revealing that the mystery is Christ within us, is the relationship. So it's not even submitting to something extra. It's just saying, okay, I understand how I was made. And it's such a beautiful thing because it's a less of a commission to get you to convert to something and more of an invitation back home. Kind of like, this is where you come from. This is how you are built. The mystery is that what built you is now inside you and fully a part of your operating system. So all I'm trying to do is just flip the switch or get you to update your whatever you want to call it, to activate the true operating system instead of being submitted to the power of the day, whoever that may be, Rome in this case, and the Pharisees. And it's just beautiful because he knew that submission to this was a commission to just spread I was gonna say reality, but that's murky wording, to spread what we actually are, which is children of love. That's why I've been singing that song so much.
Yeah.
Because there's so much shame and condemnation in the world all the time. I don't care. You turn on any kind of media of any kind of medium, and it's always condemnation. And that works. That's the exact opposite of this verse and what Paul's trying to do, and what we are trying to do now is mini Jesuses or no junior Holy Spirit, mini Pauls, as you're trying to say. And that's our commission now. So it's really cool that we get to reveal this mystery as not even a mystery. Like to the outside world, it's still a total, complete, who knows what is all this, questions. But to us, we get to reveal that mystery, which is just a relationship.
Yes.
And in submission to that, it's just revealing the identity, like the true form of humans. And that's such a big thing. And usually it can happen without so many words. Just the intent that Paul was having. I'll put that work in the shadows. You don't even have to see me. It's that kind of building. Like, no problem. I'll hold the strings of the curtains behind behind the scenes. I'll do the heavy lifting. I don't have to be seen necessarily, as long as I know that it's fulfilling the commission to show people what they are, what they truly are.
Hey,
why this guy just came and did all this miraculous stuff, people are like, well, you're talking about this Jesus guy? What do you mean? But showing what he did and that he was the fullness of creation, it makes so much sense. Like, why wouldn't God inhabit the fullness of creation if the fullness of creation is able to have God inhabit it?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you? And it's beautiful. Yes, the animals, I can see creation in animals, but we're special. We are special as human beings. We're the form that God declared he's going to take. My word is going to take this form, and it's us.
Yes.
So nuts. So crazy. So the revealing of this word, as he's saying, as the commission, is crazy, but also like the most fundamentally normal thing possible. It's so beautiful.
That's good.
Can I just say, it's been, like, you've been here, 8 months now or so?
Yeah.
And, like, to see, and not to say, I'm not saying that you were at some lowly place when you got here, but, like, to see your growth and to see how you have wrestled with the word and, like, really just picked up on, jumped right into the conversation. It is probably the best way I could put it. Like, you have done it in such a beautiful way. Like, there are things that I'm gleaning from you now that I'm just like, oh my gosh, this dude is really just a rock star in how he hears God and what that looks like. So but
nice, thanks, man.
one thing that came to mind as you were talking was St. Francis has a line often that is used, and it's preach the gospel always and use words when necessary.
I love that.
Yeah.
I've never heard that, and I love that, and I'll steal it forever.
That's a new one for you.
I've
that's a
never
good
heard
one, isn't it?
I love that.
But that's exactly what you were saying.
Oh, yeah.
And, it's such a powerful
God.
Yeah.
Preach the gospel always and use words when necessary.
Yes.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yep.
Oh,
It's really good stuff.
I love it. I love
That
it.
is so good.
I love it, guys. I agree. I think you're both rock stars, actually.
Yep.
Man, beautiful, both of you, and where you came to, where the Lord brought you to, and as you come underneath the passage, right? As we like say, I submit myself to whatever you want to say. And you both have that posture, like submitting yourself to the Lord and coming underneath what he speaks and saying, Lord, bring revelation. And gosh, it's good. Both of you guys, excellent. Admittedly, this verse is like, what you said. It's like, what in the world? Face value, reading this.
Yeah.
Paul, this looks like you are totally unsaying everything else you've ever said about the cross.
It's so true.
Like you're unsaying it in this one verse. So when that happens, like, again, like you're talking about principles of interpretation. So what sometimes and I've done this, is we will take one verse and interpret everything else through that.
Yep.
Even though that one verse says something that sounds like it's different than the weight of everything else Paul said concerning the cross.
Yeah.
Then we reinterpret everything else Paul said in light of this, rather than the weight of what he said all through his epistles is that the cross Jesus finished the work on the cross.
Yeah.
It is a finished work, to quote our friend Quincy, right?
Yeah.
It is a finished work, 100%. tetelestai, it is finished. Jesus said that, right? He said it. He said, it's done. It's finished. He didn't say, I did my part. Now you guys, fill up what's
You guys
missing.
gotta fill it up.
Yeah, fill up what's missing in what I didn't do. So, which is what it looks like when you read this passage. So then you got to take this passage, just like I'm using the phrase, I come underneath this passage. This passage must be interpreted through the light of everything else Paul said, which is exactly what you guys have just done. I was talking to Ryan about it a while ago, and he mentioned he had read Chuck Smith, Calvary Chapel guy, right? He had read Chuck Smith on this, and he was talking about Chuck Smith's approach, which is coming to a similar place that that we've been talking about landing. But I love what he said. One of the things that Chuck Smith said is, admittedly, this is a very difficult passage to translate and to work through. And I'm going to present to you my understanding of it, but I do it in humility, saying I'm only bringing what I currently understand, right? So always having that humility, that encouraged me. Like, I want to be there. I want to be at this place of saying, here's how I currently see this passage in light of everything else Paul taught, but not being dogmatic and like, you people need to know out there that what I'm about to tell you is right. Like, this is the way to interpret this passage. So that really encouraged me. But I pretty much landed where you did. It's interesting to me. One of the things I discovered in studying, like you, I'm looking up different, and I love the IVP Bible background commentary, so that you get the history and kind of the background of everything. But what is this particular one? I want to give them credit. It's the Bible Knowledge Commentary, and the one thing that they brought out that I thought that I did not know is that the word used for affliction, this word, is never used in the New Testament of Christ's death, ever. Oh. It's only used in reference to us. It doesn't speak of the efficacy of the cross at all. It's never used. It's only used, that word, in reference to us. So that kind of helps you too, right? Like, I can separate out. Paul chose that Greek word on purpose.
Yeah. Question with that, is it, so if it's only used for us, is it taking into consideration, like, his beatings and things like that, or is it other?
The actual word itself, the translation of it is distress, pressure, or trouble, which, you could say any of that Christ went through was distressful. There was pressure and there was trouble. Right. But specifically, this word is not speaking about being nailed to a cross, right. Or more accurately, it's not the word that would be used to describe the vicarious death of Jesus, right? That he died as us. This word wouldn't be used.
Yeah,
it's used in a general sense of stress, pressure, and trouble, right?
Interesting.
So one of the things as I was kind of looking at this today that I thought was interesting was that, okay, first of all, so this isn't a word that Paul would ever use when he's talking about Christ's death for us. This is a different word. He on purpose chooses a different word. But he is telling them, hey, I'm going through it. I'm going through it though, and the thing that gets me excited is it's actually for your benefit. And the whole picture of him saying that it is your understanding, the Passion Translation, filling up your understanding of the beauty of what Jesus did in this sense, which, by the way, I found only one other that I found, that there may be others that we don't know about, but the Mirror Bible uses that in their translator's notes, my understanding. So the Francois Detroit uses that same phrase, but that's the only other one I saw that did that. And I read the same translator's notes that you did too. I found that interesting. But the thing that I think is beautiful is that, so what Paul shows them in him going to prison and him going through the sufferings he's going through and when he frames it in the context of on your behalf, he's saying, I am actually, what I'm going through is other-centered. I am suffering and serving as a picture of the other-centeredness of Christ, who suffered and served, not about himself, but for the world, for you. So it's a picture in that sense, not in the I'm taking your place. like Jesus did. It wasn't enough. But in the sense of you get to see what God looks like. He's other-centered. He the suffering that he's gone through, that he went through because of love. And what I'm doing is because of love. So you're getting this picture of a suffering that I walked through. Like Paul could have denied Christ and avoided jail, right? He could have denied Christ and avoided jail, but instead he embraces Christ and he goes through the suffering, and they get to see that he's doing this because of his great love for the body.
Yeah.
The other picture of it too is that when Paul suffered and when we go through it, and there's a sense in which Christ does go through that because Christ in us, right? And the scripture that kind of backed that idea up is when Paul is on the road to Damascus, and he hears the voice saying, Jesus says to him, "Why are you persecuting me?" Right? He doesn't say, "Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting my people?"
Right.
He's like, "Why you're persecuting me?" And he's like, "Who are you?" And they, he discovers, has this encounter with Jesus. So Jesus takes very personally the suffering of his body, his bride, his beloved. And so there's this sense in which Christ suffering, not in the vicarious sense, but in the sense of the persecution that Paul went through, the pain and the struggle he went through, that there's that sense that he still suffers in his bride and his people.
Yeah.
And it's a suffering that because he stands in solidarity with us, right?
Right.
Because he's with us. He's not on the other side of our suffering waiting for us. He's in our suffering.
Yeah.
And you can use it, I think, to what you did, TJ, is go to the very real suffering in our lives that can be because of all kinds of things. The stuff that Tana's walked through this year and our family that we only made it through by the grace of God is also a picture of this is what it looks like to suffer, knowing that there's hope in the midst of it. So I don't know. This ended up being very powerful for me too as I looked at it.
Phone.
Huh?
We just lost this phone.
Yeah.
We're still audio.
Oh, audio is live.
Here, I'll do this. I'll switch to the grass. You guys can still hear us.
Yeah. Yeah. You can hear, but you cannot see.
Sorry, we're having video problems. But I have a question for you with that line of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I may be wrong in this. This may be like one of those Christian things that are said that may not be true. But isn't it said of Jesus that he experienced the things that we experience?
Yeah, Hebrews.
What? Yeah. What's the? Do you know the reference I'm
we
talking
do
about?
not have a high priest that cannot be. We do have a high priest that isn't. I can't quote it right off the top of my head, but yeah, he experienced everything we experience, yet without sin.
Okay, so here's where I'm going with this. It's almost like because when we take a look at Jesus, we don't see him going through the pain and suffering that we go through.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Normally, yeah.
But it does say that he has experienced the things that we have experienced.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe Paul is talking about that lack of understanding.
Mm.
Do you know what I'm talking about? Because say Chris, you have gone through. This is not true of Chris, to be clear. This is hypothetical.
Yeah.
Say Chris has gone through a divorce. The last thing you want to hear from somebody who has not gone through a divorce
I know what you're going through.
I know what you're going through.
100%.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's this thing about Jesus where he can say that.
Yes.
Because he came and he walked as a person. But he didn't go through a divorce.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lack of understanding of how can you say that, Jesus?
Yeah.
Do you see where I'm going
Yeah,
with
because
this?
you're saying if Chris went through divorce, Jesus went through it with him.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and that's kind of maybe kind of what I'm beginning to understand about this verse is, well, there's a lack of understanding of how can you say that?
But the mystery reveals that he has been through.
Exactly.
Which is awesome.
And that's
Makes
really
me
cool.
chuckle.
So anyway.
Did I not go through it? Did
Right.
I not lose someone in my family? Did I not? Da-da-da-da-da.
Well,
Because he's
and it's present. That's the other part. It's present tense. It's
Yeah.
not past. So it's not only Jesus on this earth, it is Jesus
in his people.
in his people and
Yeah.
through his people.
Which he unveils in the next verses that are
Right.
down, which is actually, the weight of what Paul is leading towards is that next portion,
Right.
Yeah.
the mystery, right?
Yeah.
This is all about the mystery.
Right.
And that whole picture of being Christ. I think there's something to that, TJ. I think there's something to that. I will add that it's interesting that if you go back and look in the Old Testament, God went through a divorce with Israel.
Mm.
And it's actually, I mean, just that example. It's interesting that there are things that we wouldn't normally think of God. I mean, the book of Hosea,
Right.
and I think it's Jeremiah, if I remember right, that talks about the divorce, that literally divorce language is used.
Yeah.
That God went through a divorce with his people. So God
And
felt
then
that pain
applying
as God.
Jesus to it, right? And then we're like fully God, fully man. So
Yeah.
Jesus is God going through a divorce in the Old Testament.
Yep,
Right?
exactly.
Like that's
Yeah.
Or,
And experience adultery and all that.
yep, yeah, right, exactly. Or
Pain of
so
adultery.
the
good.
pain of adultery, or Jesus actually in his earthly life, his father at some point died, and he didn't raise him
Wow.
from the dead. Like Joseph died.
Yeah.
He wasn't at the
I didn't
cross.
think about it. Yeah.
Yeah, and what was it when? Because I don't know before the 3.5 years. We don't know what went on. I don't even know when Joseph died. We don't know anything
Right.
about any of that. But as he is learning who his father is, I mean, I wonder if it ever went through his mind, like, I just raised this person from the dead. Why the heck, Dad, did you not have me raise Joseph from the dead? My earthly stand-in dad.
And the one you appointed.
Yeah. So he walked through that grieving of his own father, and even on the cross, he's like telling Mary and John, like, hey, John, take care of my mom. Mom, take care. Like he's like making family plans for his mother on the cross. Like there's stuff he actually literally did feel too. And then there's this stuff that he's walking through present tense.
And crazy past tense. Like
Yeah.
when we talk about John 1 and him being there from the beginning of all time.
Yeah.
He took on all of sin.
Before there was a was.
And that's the part where it's like, okay, Christ is so much bigger than the 33 years that we got to see him
right
on earth. And
yep, that's exactly right.
But it's such a testament everywhere, of course, but there's so many clear examples of okay, this is the architect of this place and everything else, but he understands that suffering is a part of the physical realm.
Right.
It's like friction and pressure, but you need friction and pressure for good things too. Your heart needs pressure. Certain things need friction. Can't think of any examples right now, but whatever. Those things can either be good or bad, of course, but it's almost like hey, I understand this is where I had to put you in order to birth the Spirit to be with you forever, but don't focus on this part. This is the lower vibrations. Like that's just the intro. Like you have to be born in flesh to be born in spirit. It's the only way I can be with you forever. So I have to put you in this flesh place in order for you to have an opportunity to birth your spirit. So I can be with you forever. So it's a beautiful understanding of this place, and it's not like the afflictions are over you or the framework of this place is over us. We're over it, but it needed Jesus, the architect, to come in and finish up that step, make that final connection, like Doc Brown on top of the clock tower and Back to the Future. It needed to do that thing, that high pressure situation. Of course, way more in this sense, but needed to make that connection at that perfect time so God's lightning bolt could come on through creation and complete it. Like it's done. That's what he meant, right? It's done.
It is finished.
It's done. There's no extra stuff. So obviously that's why we struggle with the first sentence of this verse, because it sounds like Paul's not saying that, or saying the opposite, unsaying, as you said.
Yeah, it is. It is just so. It is powerful. I mean, of course, we're not in. It's easy. I mean, not easy. We try to put ourselves in the shoes of these guys when they first heard it. We don't know how they completely understand how they read this
No,
when they
Right.
first read this letter. But we know that, you know, they would have read it in context of what they'd heard of the gospel.
Mm.
Like in the gospel that was brought to them not by Paul. Remember, he has a passion for this church, but it's fruit of Paul's ministry.
Yeah.
The other thing I was going to hit on too, and I want to do, there's so much in this, but when he starts talking about the mystery, we'll get into this in chapter 2, but he's like, he's about to refute these one group of people, the mystics, right? And the mystics are the people who are like, we have special knowledge that nobody else has, that you need, Colossians. And we just are so much further along than you can say. We're spiritual.
Come on.
And we're so spiritual that we just know things that you aren't going to know.
You just.
And he's like, he's going to nail that in chapter 2, right? You know, people who, you need to worship angels because we've seen this in a vision. And we and our, like, and I will speak me, I won't, you know, make everybody else be in this, but like my tribe is charismatic Pentecostal tribe my whole life. And I've either acted like that or I've known plenty of us charismatic people like that left the gospel behind. And it can become a very works based. You got to get this special knowledge
Hey, you fast more.
that nobody else has. Yeah. You do these steps and
Eve, if you
you
just
will
eat
experience
this.
seeing things that other people just don't see. Now, I don't mean that God doesn't want to bring revelation to us and there aren't supernatural encounters, and that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the spiritual elite, like I'm always got this special knowledge. You know, that there's like no greater mystery than the one that Paul says, just so you know, it's already out in the open. Like the greatest mystery is not, it's not a mystery anymore, he said. I mean, it's a mystery in the sense that we don't completely comprehend it, but it's like here, Christ in you.
It says in fullness.
Like he's telling them in you, not just in these mystics.
Well, and that's what I
in
love
you.
about our wording is we have come to, and I say "our" because this is becoming the vocabulary of the church, but specifically at the gate. But we are awakened to what is already in us.
Yeah, come on.
And that's the mystery. I think oftentimes we think, oh, we have to come into this mystery somehow, or we have to
I gotta
pray.
get there.
We have to pray that Holy Spirit come down and be here with us and show us the things when He's in us.
Yeah.
She's in us. That'll mess with some people, but it's so true. Like, like we just have to become aware of what the reality is. What the truth already is. It was done. It was finished in Jesus. And at Pentecost, it became it became real. It was in us.
Come on.
And that's us awakening to it, right?
Yeah.
And as we fall in love and as we learn and as we grow, then those things become more real because we are awakened to them. We grow into them.
You can even literally apply the word almost, because if you ever been to a funeral, that's the mystery. Like, you ever look into a casket, the mystery's gone. The mystery's somewhere else now. Like, it's gone. It's just a shell. It's the same thing. It's like we're literally awake with it.
Christ
the mystery is what is running us. Period. Is that thing between people and in people.
Christ.
Like, if you want to see the absence of the mystery, look to a coffin.
Oh, that's really good, man. That's really good.
I know we're off now.
Yeah, but I'm enjoying this discussion. Nice. Oh, I don't have time to go where I want to go.
I thought it was 45 minutes, not 1:45.
I have no time to go where I want to go, so I'll save it for the post discussion. So thanks for hanging out with us. We love you. Nothing here tonight except for Night in Bethlehem practice. If you're still listening, be here tonight
and
for that.
Register for that, please. Ryan really needs numbers.
Yeah.
So that is something that we're trying to do. And how you register is you go to our website and you look up events and you find Bethlehem, Night in Bethlehem, and you register your children.
Or call us if you can't figure it out.
Call us.
Call the office, and we'll help you get registered. So otherwise, this weekend concert Friday night, 6:30. And then Sunday, we'll be back here for service and 9:15 and Night and Bless Time at 5. God bless you guys.